Greetings from Chicago in the United States of America to my library colleagues in Iran. My name is Leonard Kniffel, and for many years I was editor and publisher of American Libraries magazine at the American Library Association, and I was a frequent attendee at the annual Congress of the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA. In 2005, I published a book titled A Polish Son in the Motherland. It was about my efforts to identify my ancestors and find living relatives in Poland with whom we had no contact after World War II. The Polish diaspora has taken Poles to every part of the world. It has been 13 years since Golem Reza Amirkhani invited me to attend the opening of the new National Library in Tehran. Relations between our governments have improved little during those years. The librarians who had gathered at the airport in Tehran to welcome me did everything they could to bring me into the country, but after 7 hours I was deported. We all understood that it was the ongoing hostile nature of relations between our governments that prevented me from visiting with my colleagues and seeing the historic sites of Iran. Especially for me, the librarians in Iran had arranged a visit to the Pahlavi cemetery, where some 2,000 Polish men, women, and children are buried who died in Tehran between 1942 and 1945, victims of the Soviet deportation of Polish civilians to slave labor camps in Siberia, following the massacre of over 22,000 Polish soldiers and intellectuals at Katyn. During the war and after, the truth about this massacre was a taboo topic until the 1980s. Author Wesley Adamczyk writes movingly about the horrors endured by Polish people during this period in history. His father was among the Katyn victims, and he and his mother and sister were deported to Siberia. His mother died of starvation after she arranged for her children's escape. In his book, When God Looked the Other Way, Wesley Adamczyk writes movingly about the horror that he endured, and about his eventual journey to England and then to America by way of Persia. Here is an excerpt from his book about their arrival in 1942. A little more than a mile away was the town of Pahlavi, where the Persians met us with exotic food and drink. They looked in disbelief at our emaciated condition and asked question after question. Why were thousands of Poles leaving the Soviet Union? And what were they doing there in the first place? Why were so many dying and so many others suffering from disease? Why and how did we leave our own country? Why were there so many orphans? The Persians were horrified when we told them about our imprisonment and starvation in the Soviet Union, which was plainly attested to not only by our physical condition and the diseases we brought with us, but by the number of people who died shortly after arrival. It was the people of Iran who helped the remaining Poles survive. This aspect of Iranian history is little known, and as librarians I believe it is our responsibility to help educate the world about this and similar tragedies. We know the answer to those questions now, but most of the world does not. Those who refuse to learn from the mistakes of history are doomed to repeat them. As a fellow librarian, I urge you to do all that you can to bring into the light the true story of the Polish people and the Polish nation, which this year celebrates the 100th anniversary of its return to the map of Europe after more than 100 years of foreign domination. I wish you a successful conference.